Okay, go ahead, Mataji. When the plant of devotional service is growing,
Hare Krishna Mataji, Vanvat Pranam.
then maybe not.
When the plant of devotional service is growing, there is still another chance of disturbance. Along with the growth of the plant of devotional service, there are other plants also growing. They are material desires. When one is advanced in devotional service, it is natural that many persons will come to the devotee for becoming his disciples and will offer him some material gains. So, if a person becomes attracted by the increased number of disciples and the material conveniences offered by the disciples and forgets his duty as a bona fide spiritual master, that is another disturbance in the growth of the plant of devotional service. It may be that by taking advantage of material convenience, one becomes addicted to enjoy the material comforts of life. Another disadvantage is to desire liberation. Also, another disadvantage is to be neglectful of the restrictions or prohibitions. The prohibitions are mentioned in the authorized scriptures. One should not indulge in the association of women or illicit sex life. One should not indulge in intoxication. One should not eat anything other than Krishna prasadam, food offered to Krishna, and one should not take part in gambling. These are the restrictions for devotional service, and if one does not follow these principles strictly, then there may be a severe disturbance in the discharge of devotional service. Mataji, continue.
Yeah, Mataji, we'll discuss these points together. It's the fourth point.
Another disturbing element is to aspire after material name and fame by discharging devotional service. If one is not particularly careful, then by the process of watering the plant of devotional service, other unnecessary plants, as described above, may grow and that may hamper the progress of devotional service. The idea is that by the watering process, these unnecessary plants grow very luxuriantly and the gardener does not see the impediments offered to the main plant of devotional service. It is the duty of the neophyte devotee to cut out all the
Plants.
unnecessary plants grown by the watering process. In other words, if one is careful against the growth of unnecessary plants, then the main plant grows luxuriantly and reaches the ultimate goal, the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan. To reach the ultimate goal, Goloka Vrindavan planet is the real result of devotional service, the real fruit grown off the plant of devotional service. When the living entity engaged in such devotional service relishes the fruit of love of Godhead, then he forgets all other ritualistic activities, religiousness for improvements in economic conditions, satisfaction of the senses, and the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord by merging into his effulgence.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
So nice. So these are there's a book called Light of Bhagavata. The Light of Bhagavata is a subsidiary study to Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, where different kinds of hampering processes to the devotional service are described in different analogical ways. One way is this, that when we are watering the plant of devotional service, then there may be so many weeds which are growing with it. And then there are, what are those weeds? So there are 4 weeds. Please remember, because I'm going to ask this every day now. Or whoever, Anvya Mataji, Rupa Mataji, if you guys take class, then ask this every day. What are the 4 weeds? One is that, okay, I'm such a nice devotee. I have so many disciples and followers and so many admirers, and they are treating me so nicely. They're giving me gifts. So I can have material desires. So I had spiritual desires, but then now I have material desires. And why not? Why not? Krishna is sending them. You see, we can justify, the mind can justify everything. It's such a, I don't know what, dynamic organ. It can actually justify everything. Uh, Even from scriptures, yes, whatever I'm doing. So, if, what do you call? a butcher reads Bhagavad Gita, he can justify that I'm not killing a living entity because the living entity is never destroyed. So where am I killing? Right? Like that. But is that correct? Is that correct justification? Is that Krishna, how do I unmute now? Is that correct justification? Somehow tell me, is that how do you unmute? Okay, you can unmute yourself. Is that correct? Is that correct justification?
No.
That
No, Mataji.
because I am living entity is never destroyed, so let me just kill whatever whoever I want to kill, and nobody will be okay, and then no sin is incurred because the living entity is never killed. Or here when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and naturally the devotee who's more austere gets some material benefits. So when they get material benefits, that because of a byproduct. Then one can have these material desires, which are like weeds, which are growing along with the seed of bhakti. So one has to be very, very careful and introspective. And another disadvantage is to desire liberation. Okay, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm becoming very happy, and I'm understanding I'm not the body, I'm the soul. So I'm liberated. So I don't need to go any further. Or neglectful of prohibitions or restrictions. I'm advanced. Why should I keep Ekadashi fasting? Why should I chant 16 rounds? I can go on chanting less or more. I have done my job. I have heard this dialogue in ISKCON actually many times from many devotees. When I ask, okay, how do you do book distribution and everything? They said, okay, we used to do it a lot. Now we have done our job. But that's not true. Like, what do we mean by saying we have done our job? Because devotional service is a continuous process. So we are neglectful of restrictions and prohibitions. This is very common in a busy life, on day-to-day life. Even though one may be initiated, one is easily able to justify their neglect because I will just take Krishna's name. Krishna understands that I will, why am I doing this? And another is aspire for material name and fame for discharge of devotional service. You see, I just want to point out something that some of these weeds are subtle, some of these weeds are we can see by our eyes. They're not so subtle. So desire for material enjoyment can be subtle in the beginning, but later if you study the devotee, we can find out that, okay, now this person is not the same. They have so many things in their name and so many things they are trying to protect themselves in the material world by accumulating so much, but initially they were not like that. So okay, so that's from subtle to gross. Are you understanding what I'm saying? I think you have to unmute yourself to answer today, because somehow I have to update this account to be able to ask you to unmute every time.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Are you understanding? Like, just try to understand that, okay, material desire may be subtle, it's in the heart or in the mind, but later it becomes very obvious to the other person. But desire for liberation is very subtle, always. You never know. We never know what's in the heart of a living entity. You never know what I'm thinking, and I don't know what you're thinking. But in the heart, if I'm thinking I'm going to take Krishna consciousness so that I can become liberated, that's a weed actually. That's not bhakti, that's weed. Or neglectful of restrictions or prohibitions can be subtle or can be gross, both. So what are the 4 prohibitions? Then I'll tell you which are subtle, which are gross. Yes, what are the 4 prohibitions? Kirti Mataji, why don't you unmute? Please tell them what are the 4 regulations.
I couldn't unmute. No gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and
no meat eating.
No meat eating. Yes.
Very nice. Okay, so let's evaluate. So no meat eating is very gross, like you can see by your eyes and say that, oh, this person is not following the rules and regulations because they are eating meat. Okay. Okay, now next one, no intoxication. That is also very obvious to the eyes that, okay, if this person is drinking coffee or tea or alcohol or whatever uh, stimulating medication or stimulating drink that stimulates the mind, but the soul doesn't really need it. Okay, they can see themselves, and other person who are in Krishna consciousness can also see that person. Not that we find fault, no, but you can see that we are struggling here and we are good there, but we are struggling here. Okay, the other one is no gambling. So no gambling can be obvious to the eyes, and gambling can be very, very subtle also. So obvious to the eyes, okay, if I'm going to a casino and I'm, betting and I'm playing cards and all that stuff, so that's very obvious to the eyes. But gambling can also be very subtle. How? Because if somebody is supposed to be chanting Hare Krishna, but they don't have time for chanting Hare Krishna, but they have time to sell and buy this stock, that stock, so that their money can grow, or this can happen. That's gambling, actually. It's gambling. I'm not saying that they are doing it very obviously, or they may not even be actually aware of it. But it is happening, because in the beginning of this book we studied that Prabhupada said that, right, that this is the civilization of pounds, shilling, and pence. So we are like going behind that, okay, let me make more money, let me do this, let me do that, as if I'm going to stay here forever. But what is forever is we are not paying attention to. Part of the reason is because we're in Kali Yuga, and people are mandasu mandamatyo mandabhagyo padita. They don't know. They don't know what is to be done, what is not to be done. Not only that they do not know, but they also don't want to know. That's a special qualification of people in Kali Yuga. We don't hear about this qualification of the living entities in Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, or Treta Yuga. We don't. The qualification of each of the yugas, living entities in each of the yugas, are described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and the special qualification of Kali Yuga is this. Okay, so that can be subtle or that can be gross. Now, illicit sex can also be subtle and gross or obvious. So, obvious, okay, if somebody is having extramarital affair, or if somebody is, juggling between 10 different relationships at the same time. Okay, that's very obvious to the eyes, but it can also be subtle. How it is subtle? Because someone is planning some illicit relation in the mind. Okay, that's illicit too. There are 8 kinds in which illicit sex can happen. So this is described. Everything is described in the scriptures. So these restrictions are can be subtle and can be very obvious, depending on what are we doing, and both are weeds. Both are weeds. A person may look very much like a devotee. They may. Prabhupada talks about a person, and he doesn't take a name, but he says there's this person in Bombay. I was listening to the lecture one day, who can cry. He gives class and then he cries. But he says, the minute a pure devotee enters his class, they can understand that this person is doing some emotional melodrama and attracting the same kind of people up to his attention. We get attracted to something how we are. Please remember, no one can cheat us for a long time, because we will get the notifications. Unless and until we want to cheat ourselves. This is my realization time and again, time and again, time and again. One may be like absorbed, like, oh, I'm so religious. Oh, I'm attached to this particular organization. Oh, this person is my guru. Okay, if you have proper training, then you study that how is it done, because we are in the sadhana bhakti stage. A guru is supposed to uplift the sadhana or uplift the practice of a devotional service. We are practicing devotional service. We are not perfected. We are practicing. And the first thing that Srila Prabhupada gave us is rules and regulations. Again and again, he's mentioning. But then I hear even in my own family, some people, they go to somebody and they say, okay, we are in the, what do you call, Sakhi Bhav. We are in Sakhi Bhav, Gopi Bhav. Okay, so we are in Gopi Bhav. So gopis are not following any rules and regulations. We don't hear gopis keeping Ekadashi. We don't hear gopis chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We don't hear gopis doing this, gopis doing that. So we don't. So because we are in the Gopi Bhav, we are not going to do this. Be careful. Be very careful as to who you're around, because that's not bona fide devotional service, and there's a history attached to it. When up to the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I don't think we have to go there, but I just want to mention, because our sampradaya is totally very detailed. But after the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there were some pure devotees who were on Sakhi Bhav, which were restricted only to the province of Bengal, and that too in Bengal only to a particular one province. Okay, up to the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself talks about this Gopi Bhav, in his writings. But when Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada came, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur Prabhupada's son, then by that time, these so-called Gopi Bhav devotees had actually transmigrated themselves from Bengal province to Vrindavan, and now they were behaving like Sahajiya Bhakta. Sahajiya Bhakta means I am behaving, I have a dress like a devotee, but I'm not a devotee in the heart. My actions are not proportional to my dress. I am dressing like that, but I'm not doing the activity of that. So, okay, then they started exploiting people. That, okay, we are in Sakhi Bhav now, we are going to do Ras Leela with these young women. Or we are exalted devotees of Krishna, so unless and until you give me this much amount of money, I'm not going to tell you the secret mantra, like that. So then Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada actually went opposite to what his father Bhaktivinoda Thakur Prabhupada did, and stopped it. He made the rules and regulations for us that we are not going to follow all these things. Right, so Mayapur actually was discovered by Srila Prabhupada in modern times. Of course, we hear about Mayapur from Bhaktivinoda Thakur Prabhupada's writings, or the writings of Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, but Mayapur was actually developed and discovered and made popular by Srila Prabhupada. Like the 6 Goswamis discovered Vrindavan, like that Mayapur was discovered by Srila Prabhupada. And he told this happened here, Mahaprabhu was here, then this happened there. So you know how Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, Sanatana Goswami, and all other Goswamis were telling us this is Radhakund, this is Shamkund, this is that. Like that, Prabhupada told us this is Mayapur, this is Ekachakra, this is Nadia, this is this. So Mayapur is still pure because Mayapur only has Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. In one sense, but Vrindavan, on the other hand, is a cutting edge because there's so many overlaps, so many weeds in present age. It's very difficult, but a person who is not in the sampradaya can never recognize what to do and what not to do. Okay, so anyhow, I just wanted to bring it up that it's not so easy. When we are watering the main plant, we grow many weeds around it, and these weeds we are growing the plant of bhakti, but we are also watering the roots, the weeds, these 4 weeds. Okay, so where is the duty of a neophyte devotee to cut out all unnecessary weeds grown by the watering process? Because if we don't, then we don't know what's growing. The weed is growing or the main plant is growing. You don't know. But person may think that I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm doing everything right, but we don't know. That's why we need a spiritual master. That's why we need other devotees who can actually direct us and say that, hey, your weeds are more than your bhakti right now, or hey, you're doing this right. We do that to each other. Okay, and then the other person is that a devotee. This is from Nectar of Devotion. This is teachings to Rupa Goswami, right? Rupa Goswami Prabhupada wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu from these teachings, and this is all explained in the beginning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Only that a pure devotional service does not is free from all these misgivings. Pure devotee is not attached to ritualistic activities, right? And we had a good discussion on it. And Madhya Leela chapter 22, Madhya Leela chapter 22 in Chaitanya Chaitamrita talks about pure devotional service. That how a person forgets all of the ritualistic activities. They're not obliged. Like, for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, we read that the devotees were not obliged to perform Govardhan Puja anymore. If they were not pure devotees, then we have to. We are obliged. We read in 3rd chapter Bhagavad Gita also that we are obliged to the demigods, to Pitras, to our forefathers, to parents, to earth, to sun, to moon, to everybody. We are obliged because we are borrowing so many things from them. But a devotee is not obliged. And this discussion and more detail is in Madhya Lila, chapter 22. Pure devotional service is also free from religiousness for improvement in economic condition. Nobody takes to pure devotional service. Yeah, devotional service is mixed. Devotional service can be okay. There are 4 kinds of devotees who approach Krishna. I guess everyone sitting here has read Bhagavad Gita at least once. So what are the 4 kinds of devotees who approach Krishna? Please raise your hand. Please don't unmute yourself. I know Neha, Kirti Mataji, Sapna have raised their hands to read, but everyone else can raise. So what are the 4 kinds of people who approach Krishna? 7th canto Srimad Bhagavad Gita. 7th canto, no, 7th chapter Bhagavad Gita. What are the 4 kinds of devotees who approach Krishna? You all have an ability to unmute yourself today.
Hare Krishna Mataji, it is Artha, Artharthi, Jnani, Jignasa.
Okay, can you tell us the English meaning? What is Artha?
English meaning, I don't know Mataji.
Mataji, then
Wait, that's why I say raise your hand, because then we overlap each other. We're not seeing each other, it's difficult. Okay, Suman Lata Dubaka Mataji. Suman Lata.
Yes, Mataji. The distress.
Lot of disturbance on your voice.
Okay, Mataji.
Rati Manjari Mataji.
Krishna Mataji.
Hi Krishna.
Artha is the one who is distressed, Jignasu is the inquisitive, Artharthi is the one who desires material gain, and Jnani is the one who knows things as they are.
Artharthi is the one who requires the material gain, and Jnani is the one who's in search of the absolute truth. Okay, thank you. Dr. Barak, why don't you tell us again? Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Artharthi, Andhra, Jignasu, and Jnani.
Okay, and what is the meaning? You can please tell.
The one who is distressed, one who needs money, one who is inquisitive, and the 4th one, I forgot the 4th one.
One who is searching for the knowledge of the absolute, Jnani.
Yeah, Jnani, that is knowledge, for the knowledge.
Very nice. So out of the 4, now this is another question. Thank you, Dr. Parekh. Thank you, Rati Mandri Mataji. And,
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
So out of the 4 kind of devotees who approach Krishna, Krishna says who is the best? Who he considers is the best?
Searching for knowledge of the absolute.
Jnani.
Jnani. Okay, yeah. I'm feeling very paralyzed today with this Zoom. Jnani is the yes. So see, pure devotional service is not that okay, I'm going to approach Krishna for some improvement in economic condition. But that doesn't mean that if I am in search of knowledge, or if I'm curious, or if I have desire for material gain, and so basically, if I'm not pure devotee to begin with, that I have no scope to become a pure devotee later. It doesn't mean that. Okay, for example, Dhruva Maharaj's pastime, we see that he approached Krishna. Why did Dhruva Maharaj approach Krishna? Harshita, please tell me, why did Dhruva Maharaj approach Krishna? What are the 4 categories?
Mataji.
Krishna.
Dhruva Maharaj approached Krishna. I am trying to still remember, Mataji.
Mataji, shall I say?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Sapna. Yes, Harshita, you can do it. Was he curious? Was he in distress? Was he in need of some economic gain, or was he in search of the absolute truth? He was 5 years old. He was insulted by his stepmother.
Yes. Now I remember the story. He wanted to sit in his father's lap, and his stepmother insulted him, saying that you are the stepson. And so he goes back to his mother crying. Thank you, Mataji, for crying. And the mother pacifies him, saying, if you really want to know your true position in life, then the only true position is with the Lord. So you pray to him for his mercy, for the absolute truth, and you will know where you are.
So what? So why did he approach Krishna? Four categories.
To know the absolute truth and to be to get his grace.
Okay, so Shobha Malli Mataji.
Sorry.
Shobha Malli Mataji.
Actually, he'll listening to his mom. He'll go in search of Krishna. He'll go and meditate on Krishna.
No, don't make it complicated. What is his reason to go to Krishna?
He went for a material gain,
economic
gain, because he wanted to have, because father, he won't get anything from his fathers. He want the whole kingdom. So he will go in search of that.
Very nice.
Yeah,
so he approaches Krishna to gain a kingdom bigger than his great grandfather Brahma. Okay, Harshita, that was his initial reason to go, because he wanted. He was insulted. He was Kshatriya. His blood was boiling. That he wanted a kingdom bigger than his great grandfather Brahma. So he was not a pure devotee to begin with, but he still approached Krishna. Okay, that's one example. And there's so many examples who approach Krishna for some material gain, but then they end up becoming pure devotees. Basically, Krishna is happy just by the fact that you come. Srimad Bhagavatam tells us from all directions, philosophical, sociological, economical, or whatever, caste system, gender biases, or whatever. From all aspects, it covers how a devotee approaches Krishna, what are the reasons, and then how Krishna takes care of the devotee. Krishna never said that because you have approached me with some material gain, now I'm going to not make you a pure devotee. No. We read about Krishna in Upanishad that Krishna is a Papa Buddham or Shuddham. Right? No sin can touch Krishna, and Krishna can purify even the most sinful person in the entire creation. So whatever may be the reason, just go to Krishna. Satisfaction of the senses is another anartha why we want to go to Krishna, because if I go to Krishna, then Krishna can say, oh God, give us our daily bread, kind of a thing. When Prabhupada says Krishna is going to give you daily bread even if you don't ask, because he is like a father. You go to Krishna to serve Krishna, not asking Krishna how he can serve you. Like I hear this a lot, when we give class or when we hear class, we hear this a lot, that I'm sure Krishna will take care of me. I'm sure, which is great, because a devotee has to have faith in something. So why not have faith in Krishna? Or sometimes some devotees use Krishna consciousness as a argument to win their thing. Like when one of my classes, one devotee said actually in the class that the devotee messaged the other person that they were having argument with, that okay, Krishna is on my side, I will and Krishna will protect me, I have Krishna, so Krishna will see, I don't need you, I only need Krishna. You see, that's not Krishna consciousness. That's not Krishna consciousness. That's what, right? We have to be careful. Are we growing the weed, or are we growing the devotional service, or the bhakti vriksha of bhakti, or are we growing the weed of bhakti? So that's not Krishna consciousness. I couldn't say it over there because I don't know them, and neither was I asked to comment on it. I just had to listen to it, and which is fine. But here, because we are reading about the weeds, be careful. Okay, be careful what you're dealing with, because Krishna consciousness is not that Krishna, please come because I'm chanting your name, please come and serve me. That's not Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is Krishna, I'm chanting your name, so please engage me in your service. But if somebody has some desire, any desire, they should still go to Krishna. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udharidi. Tivrena bhakti yogena. Right? So you have akama, no desire, like only desire is to become devotee of Krishna. Sarva kama, or one has all material desires. Or moksha kama, or one is desiring liberation. By all means, just go to Krishna. And Krishna can purify. But don't label yourself as a pure devotee, because you're not. And that is called Adhikar. When we discuss about that verse, the Adhikar, Adhikarastu Mafaleshu Kadachanan, So if I ask her in the class what is Adhikar, I'm gonna get different answers of meaning of Adhikar. Okay, tell me some of the meaning of the word Adhikar that we hear. Please raise your hand, okay? Please don't like unmute yourself and start talking, because then too many people unmute at the same time. What do you think is the meaning of the word Adhikar? I think you can unmute yourself. Please write to me if you're not able to unmute.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Neha Mataji, you want to answer because you haven't spoken anything today? Or is Sharmila there? Sharmila, yes. Please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mataji.
You should take class, Sharmila, please.
No.
A gem.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, what is Adhikar?
It's like the right to serve Krishna.
So Adhikar, okay, that's the, thank you. So she hit the nail. So the most common reason, most common meaning of the word Adhikar one hears is that right. So like, this is my right. But Prabhupada explains it in a slightly different fashion. That's why I brought it up. Adhikar actually means that one has to know their level of elevation in Krishna consciousness. That how much Adhikar have I received, or what are my, what can I ask and what I cannot ask? What is my right in that way? Not like I have a right for liberation or women's Nari Mukti Morcha or education or whatever. Not that kind of right that we study in the material world, but their Adhikar in devotional service means that how much am I eligible in devotional service now? How much have I progressed in my bhakti? How many steps have I crossed? Okay, so if I have crossed, for example, if I am only a beginning devotee and I want to behave like a sannyasi, so I'm not acting in the domains of my adhikar. Okay, or if I am, let's say, a person who is in the brahmachari ashram, but I am trying to act like sometimes like a grihastha or sometimes like a vanaprastha, and I'm not acting in the adhikar of my ashram. Like adhikar can also be translated to English corollary, English analogical word boundary. What is my boundary of action? That's adhikar. Okay, so we have to know what is my elevation in Krishna consciousness and then act accordingly. Now, how do we know is another question. How do we know? How do we know? We know from our spiritual master. We know from our own self, because we have to associate with pure devotee regularly. That is why I say, beg with folded hands, hear Srila Prabhupada every day. Every day of your life, please hear Srila Prabhupada. Because if you're not hearing Srila Prabhupada, then you don't know how pure devotee is. Then we are going to just water the tree, and then we're going to just grow weeds all over. And weeds grow very fast, faster than the main plant. So hear Srila Prabhupada. If you're not hearing Srila Prabhupada, you're not associating with the topmost pure devotee. So you really don't know what is a pure devotee. It's not possible. Don't say that we can bypass Prabhupada and we can go and, become pure devotee. It's not going to happen. What happened? Okay, we can go ahead and read maybe one or two more paragraphs. I wanted to read more. Neha Mataji, please go ahead. There are many phases of spiritual knowledge and transcendental bliss.
There are many phases of spiritual transcendental bliss, such as performance of the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, the executions of austerities and pious duties, and the practice of mystic yoga. They have their different respective results to be enjoyed by the performer, but all these results may appear to be very glittering only so long as one is not elevated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. There is a nice comparison in this connection that a person bitten by a serpent remains unconscious so long as there is no smelling of the particular type of medicine recommended. As soon as the bitten person smells that particular type of medicine. However, he at once becomes conscious and no longer can be remain unconscious by the poisonous effects. Love of God can be awakened from the dormant position by executing pure devotional service. And what is that devotional service? What are its symptoms? Lord Chaitanya described all this to Rupa Goswami. In the matter
Okay,
of the
now we are going to, this is, you have to pay attention now, because now we are going to discuss the aspects of pure devotional service. This is a little deep. Anyabhilashita Shunya, Jnana Karma Adi Anavritam, Anukulena Krishna, Anushilanam, Bhaktir Uttama. So pure devotional service definition. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to go on describing that the properties and the symptoms and signs of pure devotional service. Okay, so I think this is clear. If it is not clear, then think about it. That so many people are doing so many ritualistic activities, or doing so many pious pious duties or austerities, or they're practicing the mystic yoga, and it may look like, smell like, and to the eyes of a neophyte devotee, that person is so nice. Somebody is very expert in doing some physical activities, and then we start calling that person as this Baba or that yogi or this whatever. But that's actually a devotee of Krishna who has practiced Krishna consciousness for some time under the shelter of a pure devotee. They can know that this is not a pure devotional service. This is some sort of a physical activity. It has no connection with pure devotional service. But somebody who's not a devotee of Krishna, or who doesn't have an aim to become a devotee of Krishna, can become very enamored by these things. And they may look like in very awe and reverence of that person or that activity or that austerity. They're not. So unless and until, that is why pure devotional service is very rare. There are 8 qualities of pure devotional service, and one of the qualities of pure devotional service is pure devotional service is very rare. It's rare, very, very rare. Krishna can give liberation, Krishna can give material benefits, Krishna can give freedom from repetition of birth and death, but Krishna will not give pure devotional service to anyone and everyone. Okay, so we can read, start. So please pay attention. This is the best part. This is the cream of teachings of Lord Chaitanya, what we're going to read now. Mataji, one more paragraph maybe, if I may request you.
Thank you, Mataji. In the matter of pure devotional service, there cannot be any other desire than to become advanced in Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, there is no scope for worshipping any demigods or any other form of Krishna, or to indulge in speculative empiric philosophy, or to be engaged in fruitive activities. One should be freed from all this contamination. One should accept only favorable things for keeping the body and soul together, not for increasing the demands of the body. Only the bare necessities of the body should be accepted, and putting the bodily necessities second, one should primarily cultivate Krishna consciousness by chanting the holy name of God. Pure devotional service means to engage all the senses that we have in the service of the Lord. At the present moment, our senses are all designated because the body is designated. So we think that this body belongs to a particular society or a particular country or a particular family. This is the designative understanding of the body, and similarly the senses belong to the body. If the senses act under such a designative concept of life, family-wise, society-wise, or nation-wise, then one cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. The sense must be purified. One should purely understand that he belongs to Krishna. His life belongs to Krishna, and his identity is eternal servitorship to Krishna. And in this way, if one engages his senses in the service of the Lord, that is called pure devotional service. A pure devotee.
Thank you. Okay, so cannot be any other desire, and Prabhupada is elaborating that what are the other desires. This is there cannot be any other desires than to become advanced in Krishna consciousness.
You should come for that.
So, what are the other desires? The other desires is, okay, I'm going to worship Krishna, but I also have a faith in someone else. Or if I have faith in Krishna has names according to his material activity. Not, I mean, there's nothing material in Krishna, but his activities in the material world. Like, for example, we read this in Nectar of Devotion, Parameshwar. Okay, so that name is of Krishna is given given in according to Krishna's exhibition of power in the material world. The Krishna is not called Parameshwar in Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan or Ayodhya or Mathura or Dwarka. It is not. So a pure devotee is not attracted to that element of Krishna. Pure devotee is attracted to, okay, Vasudev, like son of Vasudev, or Pradyumna, or Sankrishna, or Krishna, or Ram, like that, or Balaram, like that. Okay, so not attracted. So that's also very deep, like what happens there, and so there's a deeper connection. This is a deep book, but anyhow, just know the basic that that's what it means. So one is not attracted to any demigod worship. That doesn't mean that we disrespect. There's a difference between respecting someone and worshiping someone. There's a difference. Okay, we respect everyone, and what makes us respect everyone? If we find fault in any living entity, then we are growing a weed. Bhakti Vinod Thakur Prabhupada talks about it, that what are the different kinds of misgivings in the heart that come in the way of becoming pure devotee. And one of the misgivings is to find fault in someone, anyone, even if they're not a devotee of Krishna, but I sit in their fault, then I am actually doing an activity which is detrimental to my own Krishna consciousness. But we have to be very careful. Very careful. And I'm actually finding fault in someone because I have the same quality. That's the deeper meaning of it. You know, if I say, oh, this person, look at this person, how this person, give me an example of finding fault. This person doesn't do anything on time, always running late, for example, okay, always running late, always, procrastinating to the last minute. So actually, if we study our own life, then and we become more and more introspective, actually we are reflecting our own fault on someone else outside. But it is very difficult to change ourselves, so why not, try to change the other thing? But that's detrimental to devotional service. Okay, so one has to be free from the scope of worshipping. That doesn't mean that we don't respect. We respect, but we don't follow any ritualistic activities to enhance anything else other than Krishna consciousness. We don't chant any mantra which is not in connection with Krishna. No, actually, there is no mantra which is not in connection to Krishna in literal sense, but we actually don't do that also. And we don't worship any other form of Krishna as which is not connected to the spiritual activity directly. For example, in the temples, yes, there is painting of universal form of Krishna. Yes, Prabhupada directed his devotees how to draw it, but we don't worship that. We don't put the universal form of Krishna in the altar and we say, oh, no, we don't. At least in Gaudiya Vaishnava Brahma Sampradaya, in ISKCON temples, I can say, Prabhupada gave us Krishna Balram, Radha Krishna, Gauranitai, right? Or Narsimadev, or Lord Ram, or Srinathji. We worship those forms of Krishna. And our worship and our deity worship training is catered to that, not universal form of Krishna. Or any indulging any speculative empiric philosophy. Now, this is also very subtle. Okay, we can have a great talk about it. For example, speculative empiric philosophy means that I am trying to make something which is inconceivable into the domains of my conception. For example, Krishna's name is Achintya. Achintya means that I cannot conceive Krishna. I cannot conceive Krishna according to my own mind, or according to the stretch of my imagination, or according to the stretch of my speculation. I cannot, but I'm trying to do it. Maybe God is like that. Maybe this is happening like that. Maybe Krishna must have done like that. Or maybe Kurukshetra is actually not a place, but actually it's a concept. Maybe Pandavas were not brothers, but actually they are compared to 5 senses. Like that, like we are speculating and empirically making and philosophizing our speculation. That's we don't. We accept. And to be engaged in fruitive activities, but thinking that I'm engaged in Krishna consciousness. Like for example, work is worship. Right? You have heard this mantra, work is worship. Have you all heard that mantra, work is worship?
Yes,
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Right, so work is worship. So that's like but actually I'm engaged in fruity workers activities. So if you ask why work is worship, oh, because by work I get money, then go more deep. Oh, I give some charity to the temple. Okay, then but then I actually am supposed to possess so many things in my life. I have purchasing power because of this work, which gives me money, and money gives me power to buy things. So that's not worship. That's fruitive activity. Where's Krishna? It's very deep. Okay, and one has to be free from all this contamination. It's so Krishna consciousness looks so far away when I do this. And the other aspect of surrender is accept things which are favorable and reject things which are not favorable. And engage all senses in the service of the Lord. Make sure that everything is engaged. Not that I'm just gonna engage my eyes in looking at Krishna, but but in the kitchen I'm not gonna cook for Krishna. That's not engagement of all senses. This is okay. Engage your eyes in looking at Krishna. Engage your body in going out and shopping for Krishna's bhoga. Your body in cooking for Krishna. Your power of talking about Krishna. Your power of hearing in hearing about Krishna. Like your power of smelling is smelling the flowers offered to Krishna. Like that, all senses have to be engaged. And what happens when we engage our senses? We become purified. We don't understand. And Prabhupada gives example that if somebody is ill and they go to a doctor and the doctor gives, okay, you take this tablet, does the patient understand how that tablet is going to cure them from the illness? Does the patient understands? Do you understand?
No, Mataji.
Okay, this is a blood pressure pill. You take this pill, your blood pressure will go down. But do you understand how this blood pressure pill will reduce the blood pressure?
No, Mataji.
But we have faith that it will, because the other person is bona fide to do this, so they're doing it. So similarly, we don't understand how these activities purify our senses, but they do. As much as the treatment of a bona fide physician purifies the illness or cures the illness in the body of a patient, the prescription of the Acharya purifies our existence. Okay, I think we close here, but this is a very deep topic, and that's why I'm spending so much time. But please read it before you come. Please read the different. I think there are 5 aspects of your devotional service described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami Prabhupada in this discussion. We discussed a lot today. We discussed that when we are watering the Bhakti Vriksha, we actually can grow the weeds also, and the weeds may look like that they are devotional service, but they are not. They are weeds, and one has to get rid of them. And what are those? One is to have material desire, or to desire liberation, or to be neglectful of the restrictions or prohibitions, or to aspire after material name and fame by discharging devotional service. So keep a check. One may be preaching. My spiritual master says that if you hear him, he's giving this class in the class. I don't know where he's giving the class, but he's giving a class, and I was hearing in the tape. And he says, okay, one way of understanding that I have a material desire is that I'm giving a class, but in the heart of heart, I have a desire that I want to be known as a very good class giver. That's not Krishna consciousness. Then that is like material consciousness, that I actually want to be known as a very good class giver, but I don't care about Krishna that much, but I want to be known like that. So that's aspire after material name and fame, okay? Or I am a very good singer. Not like I am trying to uplift the spiritual consciousness of the devotees in the assembly, but I want to be known as a very good singer. So I am singing for Krishna. Singing for Krishna, yeah, it may smell like Krishna, but no, that's why Prabhupada said we should not hear Hare Krishna Mahamantra from the mouth of lips of a person who is not a pure devotee. The name is pure, correct, but we should still not hear it from the lips of a person who's not a pure devotee. Why? Prabhupada explains it further. Why? Because you see, the milk is pure, but when milk is touched by the lips of a serpent, it becomes poisonous. So when a devotee, a person who has some material desire and is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and we are playing their tape in our house, and we are hearing them, and we are thinking, oh, I'm hearing this particular singer and they're singing Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it's so nice. No, it is compared to the milk which is touched by the lips of a serpent. It is not pure. It's not going to have the potency to take the misgivings from the heart of a person. A pure acharya, when you hear Prabhupada, we just don't hear Prabhupada. We hear Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's Vani enters the ears, and then it goes to the heart, and then it purifies the heart. And that's pure devotee. But we can go on hearing anybody else, but it will not budge from 1 inch from where we are right now. Be careful. Okay. And also, it is our duty to be able to make sure. It's not that, okay, I don't know, I'm so innocent, I don't know what's what. Well, you're not innocent. The word is not innocent. The word is ignorant. And Srila Prabhupada explains this, that what makes us ignorant. We are ignorant because we are coming from the species of lower species to human form of life, right? So lower species are mostly mode of ignorance is prominent. If you look at animal species, if you look at bird species, if you look at plant species, mode of ignorance is prominent. So we are in ignorance from those lifetimes. So we are ignorant. We are not innocent, ignorant. So we have to remove that ignorance. You cannot say that, okay, I can remain in ignorance. No, we cannot. Just cannot, because that's what it means to be a human being. Okay. And then we started a little bit discussion about pure devotional service, and we only discussed the first aspect of pure devotional service, is that there is no other desire than to become advanced in Krishna consciousness. And what are those other desires? The other desires are when we discuss the weeds above. Okay, I'll stop here, but in case you have any questions, reflections, or realizations, we can take up, and then and if someone has to leave, please feel free to leave, and then we can chant one round.